Enjoy this interview with Ellen Livingston as we go into the origins of pain and how to transform it. Blessings, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting live interview. Today I have my good friend Ellen Livingston with me today. She'll be joining us shortly. We're going to be going into the origins of pain and how to transform it. She has an amazing new mini course as a part of the Ultimate Raw Vegan Bundle. It's called The Way of Pain-Free Living. So really fitting with this topic. And both of us are a part of the bundle with 33 brand new resources worth over $840 for just $50 only until the 12th. After that, they go back to the regular prices and can be found on every creator's platforms. Hey, Ellen.
Hey, Chris.
How you doing?
Good to see you. I'm good.
You
Thanks.
too. You too. Yeah, that's great. Me as well. So, what's going on? You excited to go into this topic?
Yes, I'm coming to you live from Houston in some crappy apartment where I'm visiting my brother.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that it's a crappy apartment, but
Airbnb, it's hit or miss, a new city, never been here before. So
yeah, I know how that can be. I've been in some pretty poor ones myself. Houston, I've heard a lot of good things about, though.
yeah, my brother's in the hospital, so we're in this huge medical complex with like 5 hospitals and all these crazy high-rise apartments. So I'm on the 11th floor looking out at sky rises, and the bed was like a hammock last night.
Oh,
So
wow.
not super well slept, but I didn't used to be able to sleep on a bed like that without being in a lot of pain, and now I can. So that's a victory.
Yes, good. Absolutely. It sounds like you've transformed some pain in your life, and then also that you're probably going through some trauma, like tough times right now with your brother and stuff. So it's a poignant kind of message, right? To be able to transform that pain and to come into more balance.
I am right in it with a beautiful opportunity to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it is, right? It's always opportunities to practice, right? Because I don't think anyone in this world can ever completely escape pain, right? Whether it's physical, mental, emotional. So
yeah, and actually what I really realized on the way here was my mom's here too, and she was so sort of like frenetic yesterday with her ungrounded emotions that I realized that really my highest calling right now was to hold space for her to ground.
Yeah.
And that's what I've gotten a lot better at doing, is just, riding the waves of these huge events that happen in life, these curveballs, without freaking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Doing
absolutely.
what we can do, relaxing into what we can't do and giving it up to some higher process, and just trying to hold space for ourselves and for the people who don't know how to do that.
Absolutely. What a gift to give, right? Because you could come into that situation and be like at your wit's end and having a really hard time and breaking down, and that will only compound everyone else's.
Especially because, us natural hygieners, we come into the hospital setting where everything's totally medicalized, and that's like it's like their worst nightmare of how they're treating people.
Yeah,
sometimes, especially with cancer, was what he's dealing with. So it's just like, everything about it is not the way I would have approached it.
Yeah.
But here we are respecting somebody else's choices and somebody else's journey, and I can't really turn the course of treatment around.
Yeah.
I don't have that power right now in this situation. So it's being able to show up as love, compassion, support, in an environment that's just so far from my natural habitat.
I can totally understand that, Absolutely. I've often said that I think one of the most challenging thing as a longer term raw foodist, like as you kind of get through all the different aspects that can be challenging, whether it's the social or actually applying the lifestyle and this and that, is coming to accept that others aren't going to choose it, and others that you love aren't going to choose it, even if they, pass because of it, right? But
yeah, we may still have to take care of them while they're going through these chemicalized approaches.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. I've even kind of thought like, wow, like taxes and stuff. A lot of taxes are going towards people that are creating diseases in their life, and it's really, really sad and hard. And we wish that everyone would take this on so that that reality wouldn't be present. The pain as well as the financial burden and stuff like that. Which, I mean, that could go either way, right? But anyhow, So let's get into this topic. I guess we are
Yeah.
kind of in it already, but where would you like to start? You know, I apologize. I would like you to start by sharing a little bit about yourself for those who haven't maybe met you before,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm Ellen Livingston. Was not born with that name, but I chose that name Livingston at some point along my transformational journey of wanting to live fully into my authentic self. And it began from a lot of suffering. Well, actually, my childhood was all right, but there was a time in my life, in my late teens, early 20s, where I went through a whole lot of suffering, mental, emotional, physical, you name it. There was a lot of stuff going on, depression, anxiety, insomnia, and a bunch of physical symptoms. Started with a big real accident that I had skiing, and then it just kind of turned into a lot of chronic things.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of knowledge about any of that. So my parents would freak out and send me to this specialist and that specialist, and a psychiatrist put me on medication. And then I went to a hypnotherapist, and there were all these things, and it just sort of never felt connected to me. And there was some part of me that was always screaming in the background, wait, no, like, I don't need drugs to fix this. I need love. I need support. I need understanding. I need something else. Yeah. So I turned to my journal. I did a lot of journaling. I turned to yoga, which was kind of a lifeline at the time because it helped me connect through my body, because I've always been very physical and athletic and that kind of person, to my spiritual and emotional selves. Yeah. You know, I was able to come to that through the body, which was really helpful because, you know, yoga helps you to kind of like slow down and get present and feel what you're feeling. And
exact experience for me. Yoga was my first
that
thing.
Part of us that's beyond all the pain and the suffering, and, you know, that we can come home to that place that's not part of all that drama. Yeah. So finding that stillness within was really super helpful, because from that place, it's like a spacious place. I was able to, I guess, access greater wisdom to make choices about how I was going to deal with the stuff I was going through. And so it took me a long time. It was a long and winding journey, and I was still highly functional in life. So people didn't really realize how much I was suffering underneath, because I looked okay and I still kept up with things, because that's what you do. Yeah. At least in my family, you achieve, no matter what the cost. Yeah. So I kept doing that. And, you know, but I was really abandoning myself. Yeah. And I didn't realize how tragic that could be until I did. And I started to do something different about it. And I left the medical system and all of their treatments, and I started studying nutrition really deeply. Still took me 20. It took me 20 years from starting to study nutrition at about age 20. Yeah. 19, 20, to when I discovered raw at age 38. Yeah. That's a good long lot of years. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe 18 years of finding all these different nutritional ideas and concepts and diets and trying them all on, and kind of having little bits of success. So I'd get excited, and then it would plateau and not really go any further. And I just kind of kept knowing there was something more I was digging for. I didn't know what it was. And when somebody gave me my first raw vegan kind of book, it was like the light bulb suddenly went off, and it was dramatic. And I stayed up all night reading it. And by the next day I had a coach, and I was raw. And so people ask me, how'd you go raw overnight? I say, I didn't. It was 20 years leading up to it of working on it. And then when I was ready, I was ready. So that's was that book fit for life? Well, but the one that really turned me around was David Wolfe's The Sun Food Diet Success System. Yes,
with the triangle.
Yeah, which is not really what I follow now, but no. it was the awakening of kind of like that, and Fit for Life was the natural hygiene picture and the uncooked foods picture. And I was just like, I was like, how did I not see this? It's so obvious, you know. And just the idea that we would eat, you know, the fruit off the trees, and that's all, and, you know, and the natural foods, and not need any of the other foods. Yeah. And that we wouldn't need to cook anything. Like, why would you? So that, and
no other animal does in nature, right?
What's that?
No other animal in nature does since the dawn of time, including our species, right?
And then it was another year or so about a year and a half before I met the Grahams. They came to a town near me, Doug and Rosie Graham, and I drove 3 hours to see them at with some church group that was hosting something at somebody's house, and then I was further blown away because I was getting really emaciated eating tons and tons of vegetables. I didn't know to do the amount of fruit that I do now.
Yeah.
So I was kind of wasting away. I was feeling good, but I didn't look so great. So people were worried about me, and so that I drove back home that night. And then I drove the 3 hours again the next day and had a 6-hour consultation with Rosie.
Oh, nice. She's
And
a living heart,
yeah,
right? She's amazing.
she like spent the day with me, and she said, she's like, honey, we just have to get you some calories.
Yeah.
I was eating like half the calories I needed. So she's like, we're just going to get some calories in. So I started paying attention, and that turned it all around. And so that's where I've been ever since. So now it's been, 22 years raw. So about 21 almost on the low fat, high fruit kind of approach, because it works, and I'm just happy there. And so I really have no thoughts of, if somebody showed me evidence that there was something out there that was better, I would surely look at it. But I haven't yet seen it. So I continue. And what was frustrating to me though, was that even with all of that and how many symptoms fell away, I still had a struggle with chronic pain. Like it didn't fix everything. And so I had to keep looking. I'm kind of a truth seeker by nature. I found out I can get intense that way. Like I'm not just going to give up. There's something else out there that will help me feel like I used to feel as a kid, and somebody gave me a book, which came back into my life way later, as often happens to me, where I read it once and I'm sad, that's not me really. And then I read it again. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. There was things like the highly sensitive person. I started to figure out a lot of things about my personality and why I was struggling with certain overstimulation factors and things like that. Was the...
Were you too sensitive to see it the first time? You're like, I'm not a highly sensitive person.
Well, I was always being criticized for it. People call you too sensitive. Oh, get a grip. Oh, get over it. Oh, I'd be like in hotel rooms hanging socks over all the little electronic lights everywhere because, and somebody would say, just close your eyes. I'm like, but I still know they're there. They're still,
Yeah.
It sounds silly, but it really had gotten under my skin. And just noises, lights, overstimulation, conversations. I just couldn't wind down, and my nervous system was all jacked up, like chronically. Yeah, I'd lie down.
That was a huge effect.
And the whole thing was buzzing.
Yeah.
So vagus nerve stuff, just nervous system stuff, and then along the way, I learned about something called tension myositis syndrome. Dr. John Sarno.
Okay.
Fascinating.
I haven't heard that.
So that's where I really learned to distinguish between acute pain, which would be like you get in an accident or a sudden onset illness or an acute trauma of some sort. And then in a reasonable amount of time, it heals and you're back to normal pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And you don't continue to have all kinds of pain and stuff because it heals, because the body's amazing and it heals. So if it's not healing all the way and the pain is lingering, there's chronic pain.
Yeah.
Which I think is defined as, 3 months or more. It might come and go. It might move around the body. It might be mysterious and you have no idea why it's there. And then the next day it's somewhere else, or it's persistently in a spot, but nobody can find anything wrong with that spot in your body.
Yeah.
All
that's
the
always
tests.
Fun, right? Yeah.
Part of the reason it took me so long to realize the missing piece, which was the emotional part underneath pain, was because the medical doctors don't look at that, and so they convince you that all these x-rays and stuff that show spinal abnormalities and bulging discs and all kinds of fancy names for all the ways your bones are lined up not quite right, they'll convince you that that's the source of your pain. And it's convincing when you see an x-ray that doesn't look so good. But I learned that that's usually not the actual source of the pain, that if a nerve is truly pinched by a disc, it would hurt like hell until it didn't hurt anymore because it gets damaged. right? And he showed, you know, through all these studies and stuff that it's not actually even possible for that to be happening. So, and you know, my lower back pain would come and go. It'd be completely debilitating one year and completely gone the next year. And so I started watching patterns in myself, and I started studying this stuff, and he goes into a much deeper, fascinating process about what our mind will do to like withdraw oxygen from certain parts of our body and create all this pain, because then the ego's distracted with physical pain and the emotions stay buried. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally does. Yeah,
it's much more acceptable to talk about physical pain than our emotional anguish that nobody understands. They're like, okay.
Yeah, and everyone has some, but people are afraid to talk about it. I find it really amazing, actually, some of the things that everyone experiences in their life, but for some reason is incredibly shy or shame-ridden to try and talk about.
Like, let's say, for example, rage at our parents.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't do anything terrible, there's always, as a kid, there's times when nobody listened to us, or you know, nobody understood us, or
they didn't let me go to Calgary.
Right. It doesn't have to sound like a huge trauma to a small child. It is sometimes, you know, and then there's the bigger traumas that happen to some of us. And so, yeah, so we learn to bury all that, and our parents don't usually know how to handle it, and society doesn't. And so we're all running around with all these like sort of maximum security prisoners down in the basement, like rage and fear and anger, frustration, strong emotions that we don't even really know they're there.
Yeah,
we're not even really aware of what it is or that it's there. But it's kind of insidiously kind of running the show. And so if we don't see it and acknowledge it and understand that, we don't even have to understand the process completely. We just have to we don't have to understand the emotion or where it came from completely. We just have to understand that that's what's going on. And some people, you just tell them that their pain is actually has an emotional origin, and it's actually not causing real harm in the body, and they stop worrying and it goes away.
It's a beautiful truth.
I mean, haven't you ever had the experience where you've got like back pain or something and you get really freaked out about it because you're going to like fall apart and your body must be like falling apart? And if you found out that it wasn't, that it was just muscle tension from emotions, you might stop being.
I've definitely experienced that 100%, because I've had, you know, a decade of back pain, and there were certain times it was there and certain times it wasn't. And I'm pretty darn sure it was vastly connected to stress, whether it was physical stress, like overworking and muscle cramping in certain areas, or just, you know, mental, emotional stress that was keeping me tight and then keeping that pain alive.
And it's empowering to know that.
Absolutely.
It's even the cause of so many injuries, because we're so tense that then we go and tweak something.
Oh, for sure. And skateboarding, that is very clearly demonstrated. And it's demonstrated also by fear. You know, like you hurt yourself, and then you're afraid of hurting yourself. So then you're more tense and you're way more prone to hurt yourself. And plus you don't look as fluid and good, and it doesn't feel as good either, you know? So it plays out in that arena hugely as well.
And that's the same thing for other symptoms. If somebody's having digestive symptoms, let's say, and then they get afraid to eat anything. They get afraid to eat at a restaurant. They get afraid to veer off their one little tiny plan because they're afraid of what might happen. And then we just get really limited.
Absolutely. That can be the huge difference between someone thriving on a raw food lifestyle because they're doing it because they love it and they're free and they're joyous and they're relaxed and just, you know, picking the foods they love, and somebody who's applying the exact same diet but is doing it because, you know, I should do this, I have to do this is what right. I'm not as good if I don't apply it perfectly, and they're tense and worrying about, is it organic, is it this? And I'm not saying any of those things can't be an important part, but if you're eating it from a stressed place, you're not going to have the same results as someone who is from a relaxed, joyful, gratitude-filled place.
I mean, sadly, we have a tendency to dwell in stress and fear.
Yeah.
That's like
absolutely
a cultural norm.
Yeah, it's a rare individual that just experiences it like a duck and shakes it off really quickly. That's something I've really tried to put more attention and intention to, right? Just see things come up, feel it, and when it starts to try and, you know, go into those hoopties, going again and again, to breathe into it, accept it, and move through it. But it's definitely not always easy. Sorry?
this too shall pass kind of
Yes,
mantra.
exactly.
I like to think of creating space, you know, like if we can just, you know, with somebody taught me about the difference between narrow focus, you know, like when you're in an intense conversation or project or something, and open focus where, and so the really great tool that I've been learning is developing the skill to maintain open focus even when you're also in narrow focus. So right now, to be aware of the view out the window, because I've got like a big long view of the city with all these trees and stuff, and yeah, I'm also concentrating on a conversation with you. I'm also kind of feeling myself in my body, being aware of a bigger picture. Does that make sense? So then I'm not so tensed up. I think it's like how animals are.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's a time and a place for narrow focus, you know, when you're really in something very specific, you know, and I would say probably animals do that when they're hunting, or like it's like a fight or flight kind of thing, right? And that's part of the reason I think why blood pressure rises and adrenaline pumps, because we're just narrowly focused on one thing and that's it, you know, but
which is okay for a few minutes, but we got to
yes,
take breaks and come into the open focus.
absolutely. And I learned that in yoga very profoundly as well, just realizing, and this is a little bit more in the kind of physical rather than in kind of the energy awareness kind of focus. But, you know, if you're focusing on one thing, your mind is more likely to be classifying, thinking about it, judging. Whereas instead, if you have a soft gaze and you're not really focusing on anything, the mind quiets, right? And it's a powerful demonstration of that.
The soft gaze. You know Amy Schrift in Costa Rica.
Yeah,
Chris
absolutely.
and I have this history together. She, you know how she took her glasses off forever, even though she kind of needed them to see the American way. And she claimed, you know, she says, I think, you know, it's a really good point to take in, that she doesn't believe our vision is supposed to be that sharp.
Yeah.
So
she
has a little bit more of a soft focus. And when we're out living in nature, the trees, the greenery, that's a soft focus compared to hard-edged buildings and cityscapes and all of that, and computer screens and letters and books and, you know, right? So our natural focus would be much longer view, softer, and that would give a signal to our body and our digestive system and our whole vagus nerve and nervous system to be more relaxed and not be in fight or flight agitation.
Absolutely. I can imagine walking through a forest, and if you have a soft focus, you're much more likely to actually be able to feel, sense, and react to everything going on around you. Whereas if you're just staring down at the rocks that you don't want to step on, you're experiencing ouch, 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 ouch. You know?
Or respond instead of so it, you know, that's the skill in action. And one of my favorite personal practices around this kind of concept is barefooting in a nature place. Like I have a big park by me, and I can go barefooting for an hour through the park. I don't even bring my shoes out the door because I walk down this little dirt lane and I'm in the park. So and it's pretty nice. And I just am always much more mindful when I'm barefoot. It slows me down because I'm not only am I like being a little bit mindful of what I might be stepping on, but I'm feeling the communication from the earth on the bottoms of my feet, which I wouldn't be feeling if I had a big piece of rubber there. And so it's causing me to like get these signals. I can't even put it into words exactly, but you know what I'm talking about. You feel it up through your body. I'm walking on the earth. I'm connecting. I'm present. This is amazing. And now I'm on grass, and now I'm on moss, and now I'm on mud, and now there's some gravel, and it's just so much, you know, nature input that just is such a magical kind of input. It's kind of a healing input, you know, versus flipping through computer screens or whatever. So creating that space, and there's like a quote that I like to give people, which is, I don't know where I got this, but I loved it when I heard it, like just saying, okay, today I'm going to just see what there is to see. So that's that spaciousness. I'm going to feel what there is to feel, and I'm going to know what there is to know.
A lot less pressure.
What we don't do is feel, you know, like letting ourselves feel. And that's what I found out, that I had and still work through it, a really strong pattern of not feeling what I was really feeling, you know, like, and then you get in like big emotions that are kind of tethered and not really proper response to things
Yeah.
because you squished so much and not paid attention.
Until it becomes an explosive bottle.
Right, exactly. And that's not really healthy. So when I wrote this mini course, and thank you, Chris, for prompting me to, like, inspiring me to try out technology for a first mini course, because it was kind of fun to do. And there's audio components to each lesson, and then worksheets and written. And I sort of focused on these like 3 pillars. The first one being understanding the origins of pain.
Yeah.
Because if you just go to medical doctors when you're in pain, you only get part of the picture.
Yeah. And they usually just want to numb it out.
They're not going to talk about the emotional origins of pain.
No. And they're not even going to respect the reality of where the pain's coming from, right? So they're instead just, I mean, they might try, but for the most, it seems they just want to numb it or, surgery it.
Yeah, let's just treat the pain, but not the cause.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so then we just keep limping along because it'll come up somewhere else if it was one that had an emotional origin. And so it's just understanding that, and then going a little deeper into Dr. John Sarno's work around the process by which the mind and the ego will literally do some things to create pain physically in order to keep the emotions safely suppressed.
Yeah.
Like keep
it's kind of
down.
It's kind of along the same lines of just staying in the story. Like, I think oftentimes people can have a story about themselves and be in a victim mentality of, well, this is me and this is what happened and this is who I am and I identify as this. And they're stuck in it, even as you said, if the pain has physically left the body, their emotional connection to that victimness and stuff can keep them rooted in it for a really long time.
Or it might even be something as direct and simple as, like me, and you could say this too, I've had some real injuries, like this skiing injury.
Yeah.
It's very tempting to want to blame all the other pain on that injury because, well, if your knee's like mine and it's wobbly for the rest of your life, then of course that makes sense that the opposite hip would start to hurt, and the shoulder and the back, but in reality, the body can learn to adjust, and there's no need for everything else to hurt.
Yeah.
It's not explained away that easily, but it's tempting to latch on to a physical explanation that I can see.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I've been guilty.
It's also possible that there's both things going on.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that there is
because otherwise we wouldn't have to do anything to help physically, right? But I can.
But if you strengthen it and it heals and everything, and then you're still having all this other chronic pain, you need to look a little deeper. There may be another component to it as well. And like you said, like let's say with my knee again, or a skateboarding injury, or your motorcycle, you hurt something, you get a little bit scared, you use it, so you're careful, so then you're tense.
Yeah. And then you hurt yourself even more.
Parts of your body are tense, and then you create other pain.
I've experienced that firsthand multiple times, and
I know you have.
It's definitely always when I'm like in fear and thinking about, I don't want to hurt it again. But if I'm just feeling good and loose and playing, then I mean, sure, I might strain it a teeny bit, but to a very different degree than I do if I'm tense, and then I won't even want to try, So
right, like your tendons aren't all tensed up and everything.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the first pillar, is really like understanding pain and understanding your personal relationship to it. And in the worksheet, I'm having people really dive a little deeper into their own experience with pain and how they've felt it and responded to it and understood it. And most of us have the experience of being further down that path by going the medical route and just being even more ingrained in these teachings that it's all physical. So we have to unlearn some of that and learn some other stuff. So the second pillar is really natural hygiene.
Nice.
Learning how to adhere to the basic, obvious, simple laws of nature about how we would eat, how we would, rest when we're tired, eat when we're hungry, get enough sleep, walk barefoot.
That are ignored so often, right?
Nature for me and most of my clients, for me, that's a really strong spoke now. For most people, it's a really short spoke. They go out for a quick walk with a dog or whatever. That's not nature immersion, really. Yeah. So to get them, couple of the exercises I have really get people into a deeper experience with nature. Because when you do that, you start to understand the wisdom of natural hygiene. It just starts to click.
Yeah.
When you get out of the house and put the books down and go experience it for yourself, and go pick fruit and, play in the waterfall.
That makes me think, and it's a little side tangent, which I won't go too much into, but earlier on when you're kind of mentioning how, for 20 plus years you've been following this lifestyle, and if you found something that sounded better or made more sense that you maybe go there. And I totally agree. And at the same time, I always think like, what is nature's example? And I always put nature's example above the latest, short-term or medium-term study, because it's got a track record of since time began,
Well, I'm waiting for the super perfect bionic knee to come out.
Yeah.
Because if somebody develops the technology that's that good, I might consider it, but only with the wisdom of living hygienically also.
Yes. And which, is kind of, that's a really interesting side topic as well, because, in some natural hygiene kind of circles and stuff, like that's looked at with like so much fear, and like that's wrong. Like, you like any kind of utilization of technology within the human construct is like, oh my God, that's end times and freaky. And I mean, I know a little bit of my history with Star Trek, and I have a Borg tattoo, which is essentially kind of the merging of biomechanics and humanity, right? And like, I'm not in the same boat right now because I'm feeling pretty darn good, but at the same time, I'm not like, I don't look at it like this as bad. And
Right.
if it can help, that could be, if in conjunction with the other principles, to me, it's not a black and white thing, but a lot of people make it black and white. Is kind of what I'm like.
Well, and you could limp the rest of your life. Somebody could limp around the rest of their life, or get a medical repair on something, and then do proper healing around it and come out, extra good.
Yeah.
Like, we have the technology, so sometimes it's really useful.
Yeah.
So I don't shun it either, but it's not my first.
Yeah, not your first call.
Yeah, the first thing is like, first things first. What would nature do? What would love do?
Yeah.
What does my whole system, my holistic system, really need in order to calm down, recover from whatever the trauma is, reset, see what there is to see, feel what there is to feel, know how can I go there first and get really grounded in listening before I jump in? Because you go to the medical place and they'll talk fear.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of their main motivators.
A few years ago, I had it about 8 years ago. I had an experience with my knee. I went dancing and tweaked it sideways too much, and my whole leg froze up. And like for 9 months, I was in this radical situation where it was hard to walk, and my leg just wouldn't calm down. And I do realize now there was an emotional component to that, but it was pretty wild. And I finally, in desperation, went to an orthopedic surgeon, and he said, "Yeah, there's nothing we can do but a knee replacement. Hang on as long as you can and we'll replace it." So I was kind of discouraged. So I went to get a second opinion, hopped up on that guy's table, crossed my legs yoga style. And he just looked at me and he's like, "No, you are not going to like this artificial knee that doesn't really bend." He goes, "You don't even need a physical therapist. Go get on a bike. You know what to do. Ride your bike every day for a month and then call me." And I was afraid to do it because everything I did hurt. Yeah. But I kind of like gently, wisely pushed through a little bit, and it got better, and I was back on my feet when I didn't have. So somebody was about to operate on me, and I really didn't need it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that kind of bridge, right? I think in the past it was like no pain, no gain, and also when you hurt yourself, just immobilize and do nothing. And I feel like the newer information is like, as long as it's below a 3, motion is the lotion, and that will help to get more blood flow and allow it to heal. And eventually that 3 turns into a 2, into a 1, as long as you don't repetitively go much beyond that 3. And that's what I've been trying to employ more.
And one of the teachings of Dr. Sarno was that the mind and body actually has the capacity to, in order to keep these big emotions suppressed, to withdraw just a little percentage of oxygen from the muscles, which can cause radical pain.
Yeah.
And so blood has oxygen. Exercise gets all that going again. And so one of the antidotes, or the huge pillars of healing in the John Sarno system of TMS, is to get moving, and to get moving as vigorously as you can.
Yeah.
and to not be afraid. Because once you understand that if you have TMS, if it's of an emotional origin, the pain that you have primarily, then it's not actually causing permanent harm to the body. It's okay for you to exercise.
Yeah.
And so you need to exercise knowing that it's not going to hurt you for real.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it is kind of in your head. And so then you get over that fear, and then the pain gets better.
Yeah.
So because
it allows really relax, right?
Yeah. So the third pillar then is about the mental and emotional work and spiritual work, right? So first you've understood the origins of pain and the origins of your pain, and you've gotten into that complex, new learning of that. And then it's putting the natural hygiene into practice. And then it's paying attention to the mental process that you're in.
It's the loops,
I call it like the wisdom way. Yeah, finding your real wisdom. And the loops, the stories, the habitual thought patterns that are so debilitating, the fear pattern of thinking, that,
I feel like I could probably take this course.
Yeah.
I haven't yet.
Well, I mean, it's really a lifelong journey, and some of us are in it deeper than some of us get catapulted in it through traumatic experiences with a lot of pain. Some people seem to, I remember running into a guy at the Woodstock Fruit Festival one year, and he was 56. I was about the same age at the time, close. And he was all a mess whining because he had sprained his ankle kind of bad. And it was the first injury he'd ever had.
Wow.
I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Wow. Yeah,
How can you get away with going through life and becoming 56 with no pain from injuries?
Wow.
It just like really, really threw me, and it made me realize, the differences in our journeys.
I think I've rolled my ankles about 100 times skateboarding. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Well, you did choose a risky sport.
Yeah. And I can't remember life before it, so it's been a long time.
And I wouldn't have blown out my whole knee if I hadn't been on a black diamond hill in a blizzard in Aspen, Colorado, being a total daredevil at age 18. So
felt fun and right at the time, right?
Probably not.
And I guess realistically, it's
not very wise.
Yeah, but I mean, it's led you here now, right? And all those challenging experiences have put this all together so you can help people streamline this. So that's a beautiful thing.
That reminds me of this. Maybe you've heard this little proverb. It's told in different ways, but there's like a guy who, something bad happens, and all the villagers are like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. That's so terrible. And he says, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that it needed to happen for something good. And then something good happens. Oh, that's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. We'll see.
Yeah.
To not be so attached to the external happenings as if what should be happening and what shouldn't be happening, and what's right and what's wrong that happens in the external world, and instead just create space to observe it and respond to it rather than react to it.
Absolutely.
And just be curious. Oh, so this is happening. I wonder where's the learning for me in this. I wonder why I created that experience.
It kind of
I
goes
wonder
back.
what I can do with this experience.
It kind of goes back to that narrow view versus the soft view, right? It's like, and that could be an example of in present moment awareness, but it can also be that we're just a drop of awareness here, but there's a wider awareness that creates more softness in our entire life.
I'm looking at that now, as I was traveling yesterday to get to Houston to go to my brother's bedside, and he's been a lifelong smoker. Here he has multiple kinds of lung cancer things going on. Who knows the whole complete picture of the cause and what's the emotional piece maybe, and all these things. That's his journey.
Yeah.
But it seems really tragic, and it is in a way. And on the other hand, who am I to know what his journey needed to be?
Yeah.
And what the outcome of this is going to be.
Yeah.
It could give him a whole new lease on life.
Yeah.
Or it could lead to his death with a spiritual healing. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the right way for go? So I can get really fixated on my own grief or sadness, which there's a place for that, obviously, but we don't want to dwell there and increase it by telling a story that it's all wrong.
Yeah.
That this is
holding on to it.
Path.
Exactly.
That it
Yeah.
should be different, because we don't know. So for our own journey, but also other people's journeys, to think that we have to fix everything. And instead, it's just such a relief to me. It was such a relief. It was kind of like the relief of finding natural hygiene and the raw vegan diet, and being able to just dump a whole bunch of other teachings and come back to this simple truth and just be like, oh, like I don't have to keep chasing all these little, back alleys anymore. I've now got the kind of like the basic tenets, and I can just do that, and it's enough. And it's kind of like that. Once you get the idea of treating life as this spacious, from this more spacious vantage point, where you're just curious and kind of in awe of the whole thing and wondering, about where it's leading, instead of freaking out that you want it to go somewhere else, it just becomes a much more relaxing journey.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really what impresses me throughout this whole talk is relaxing into life, and having more confidence and awareness that things all have a place, and that if we can just let go into the present and be more, I guess, expansive, and at the same time just relaxed, that things get a little bit easier.
And a seemingly miraculous result of that is that chronic pain drops away.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you bring all the fruits in, and the other kinds of physical symptoms drop away.
Yeah.
It's not really miraculous. It's just kind of a natural response in your body to getting what it needs and being in the state that it prefers, its natural state, which is relaxed, open, compassionate, in a state of love and, tranquility. And that's, I believe, our natural essential state. And we just want to just find out however we can just keep coming home to it frequently every day.
Yeah.
For me, that's meditation, barefooting, spiritual readings, chanting, kirtan, doing natural movements, eating the fruit with a sense of little bit of reverence, keeping an open focus when I'm in conversations that might be tense, so that I don't get all caught up. And just all these little micro practices all day long, every day, is building that new vantage point, which changes everything. Like these.
I love that you explain that it's a multi-pointed kind of reality, right? Because a lot of times, say in the spiritual practice or in the yoga practice, people are like, well, just this, if you just do this, if you just, and same with raw food, if you just do this, right? Like, then everything will become magically good. And it's like, there are other aspects to it, and it's seldom black and white. I mean, nature generally has some gray in there as well, right? So
yeah, I wanted raw food to heal everything for me, because I was good at doing that. I was very disciplined with that because I don't know, I just had that muscle. That part was easy for me. I tell people a lot, that was for people who really struggle with the food. For me, the food was the easy part. It was finding out that there was a much less scientifically visible spiritual and emotional path that didn't have such ready formulas.
Yeah. It's more experiential than knowledge. I mean, you can have knowledge, but it's required to really go through it and dive deep to be able to uncover it.
Yep. And so it takes a lot of courage. And that's why I wrote a mini course about it, because I think that one of the things that that I might be here to do is to help people embrace this path with courage instead of keep shying away from it, because there's so much more fun to life when you're not dwelling in some sort of misery that things aren't how they were supposed to be. And your body, to me, healing is, the way of pain-free living. I don't really mean that we're going to be 100% pain-free in life. That's not really possible, but you can kind of shoot for the moon and land somewhere in the stars. So we're heading in that direction because pain is not the same as suffering. Pain is just pain. I mean, if you're just present with it, you can do pain. Suffering is something we create on top of the pain, right? With our mindset. And so we can free ourselves of a lot of that suffering and then just be present with pain, and then pain kind of just dissolves. We just, somebody gave me these great like audio tapes that were really about leaning into the pain and then opening it up, and leaning into it and opening it up, and gradually it just sort of dissolves.
And it's a beautiful feeling.
By not
I've had more
avoiding it, by going into it rather than shying away from it.
Accepting it and breathing into it and loving it. I've had very poignant experiences with that in the few times that I've had like a intense stomach pain from overdoing, say, nuts or doing something else, and woke up like, oh my God, my stomach, my stomach. And then I'm like stressed. I'm like, and like, oh. And once I stopped and breathed and relaxed and opened up, it dissipated. And like, exactly as you said, like it just like melted. And I mean, in yoga practice too, that's one of the beautiful things I think about yin yoga too, is, being able to relax and not try and power through some discomfort, but instead just breathe and relax and fold.
Meet it.
Yeah.
Meet it. And it's the same thing with the strong emotions. If we can meet the emotion, it dissolves.
Yeah.
Instead of just burying it somewhere because it's too scary to look at. If we actually dare to look at it, it's not nearly as bad as we thought. Usually if we can just meet it, and then it starts to work through and move through and dissolve, and then it's done.
Isn't that the reality of almost everything? I find that my mind will make things in the future to be painful and to avoid it, and like, oh my God, that's going to be so challenging or take so much work, or I can't do it. And then when you're actually in it and just present, it's like, this is actually, like, sometimes it's great, and other times it's like, oh, this isn't bad at all.
I had to do that with insomnia. I had such serious insomnia for a while that you start to freak out when you can't fall asleep, and like, oh my God, I'll never be able to do what I committed to doing tomorrow, and it's just going to be terrible, and it's going to ruin my life. And then just being with it. Oh, so I'm awake tonight. So let me just be with myself while I'm awake and just relax into it. And usually it makes you fall asleep. But even if it doesn't, even if you never do fall asleep, to not be freaked out about it, the next day usually goes pretty fine. And you realize, you can get through this and just stop freaking out about it, because then we're all revved up, and now we're in pain also, and now we are creating a mess. We're just exacerbating everything. So
complete
our mind,
cascade effect.
Yeah, it's like a catastrophizing.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to do at times, but what a blessing to know that we can relax into it, and that actually is a major solution.
Yeah, and I guess sometimes we're afraid to relax into it because it might take time, and we're supposed to be doing something else or whatever. But think about it, a lot more time gets chewed up, continuing to have the pain.
Oh yeah.
Or the unlooked at emotion. And if you just take a little time out and address it and meet it. So I live by the ocean now, and I love it because sometimes when I feel a strong emotion, I'll just go down to the ocean when it's like, especially if it's like a windy day or crashing waves, and it's like, the energy of the ocean kind of meets the energy in me. And I just walk with it, and it just is so healing, and then it just kind of moves through. It's like a little help from nature, or go to a powerful waterfall or something powerful like that in nature.
So expansive. There are a few things that transmute energy, like water, and just that expansive nature, right? It's such a heart opener.
Oh yeah, well, just looking out across an ocean, that expansiveness, and it kind of reminds us of a bigger space that we live in, and a bigger perspective. And I don't know, I find that super rejuvenating.
Yeah.
So that's another place where nature's our great friend and healer. So yeah. Anyway, it's something I love to think about and talk about and help people through, because like you, I have developed so much compassion for people dealing with pain, insomnia, digestive issues, these kinds of debilitations, because they can feel truly debilitating.
Oh yeah.
And they can feel like they're going to be there forever.
Yeah.
It can feel
and
like
nothing's here forever.
Yeah, and when you start, down these journeys, sometimes, just like with detox on a raw diet, sometimes things get cranked up a little bit for a minute, because if you start like diving into like the TMS thing of looking at your pain as emotional in origin, some of those emotions might actually just start coming up, and it's possible the pain will get worse for a minute, but you're onto something, and it's like you're telling your body, I love how John Sarno says this. It's like, I see what you're doing. You can't fool me anymore. I see the trick now.
Yeah.
So you can't trick me anymore. And so then it stops working.
Yeah.
the trick, and it's just a little bit of unraveling, and it's kind of fun if you look at it that way. It's kind of funny, actually.
It reminds me of Eckhart Tolle and the pain body, and just observing, like, is that true? Is that like, or is it just the pain body jumping up and trying to create a whole hustle, right?
I'm reading one of his books right now. I brought it with me, The New
Yeah, it's
Earth.
a great
Yeah,
book. Yeah.
because he really gets into that, and he has such a great way of talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's so many wise books out there about it. So really, in a nutshell, it's about expansion and space, and creating room for things to be felt and seen,
Yeah. Which
so that they
is
can not be so intense. They'll just move on through.
absolutely, which I think is just such a blessing to everyone in the movement, and also a blessing that you created it, and it's a part of the bundle too, because while we're talking about pain, it comes in many, many ways, and applying a new lifestyle is letting go of some old aspect of self, and it can bring a lot of challenges, and I think this is a huge key component to making it even more successful, and for the life just to be more relaxed and more pain-free in
And
general.
a lot of people that approach a raw food diet are coming from a place. Turn that off. Sorry. Um,
Oh, I can't hear you. Oh,
Phone call came in.
oh.
I had to turn it off. So a lot of people approaching the raw food diet are struggling already with some kind of pain or chronic pain or illness, and so that's why they're searching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know there's a lot of us active pain bodies in the raw food world.
For sure, in the whole world, right? But it's
Yes,
like
and
it's
in the raw food world for sure, because these are, but I love the people, anybody who approaches a raw vegan diet seriously. I just have this like resonance with these people because I know that they're serious seekers.
yeah, they're looking to heal, and they're more willing to look a little bit deeper and
Right.
to go off the regular beaten path, and it's so important to recognize, kind of like as you said too, just that this stuff is going to come up. This is part of life. But when you go on a raw food diet, sometimes a little bit more comes up, or you become a little bit more sensitive to what comes up. And
Right.
having this awareness can make that part of the journey a heck of a lot easier.
And raw vegan, as opposed to simply vegan, is
Mm-hmm.
it's a level up where people are not doing it purely for environment or animals. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
At this
Yeah.
point,
Have vegan for the planet and the animals, and raw vegan for self. And I mean, it's even better for the planet and animals as well.
it
But
is.
yeah, so
But people are usually doing it because they're trying to improve their own health
yeah,
when they get
yeah,
the raw version. So so I think people are sort of ripe and ready for this deeper spiritual work, and that's why I like to talk about raw spirituality, because it's all
mm-hmm.
part of the same thing. It's like really surrendering and being really humble to these processes, and with that we get kind of cracked wide open, and we stop thinking that we know everything,
Mm-hmm.
and we just open into this vaster mystery, and then begin to open into a state of curiosity and awe and wonder. And you think about like little toddlers. I have a grandson right now who's a toddler,
Mm-hmm.
and you watch them, and they wake up every day with so much joy. They cannot wait to bounce out of bed and go do stuff.
Yeah.
And find stuff and see stuff and learn new stuff, and they fall down and they cry for a minute, but they don't want to cry very long, because they want to get back to all the wonder of the new learnings, and they don't dwell until they get older, and we teach them to. But when they're really little, they don't dwell there. They're all about getting back to their natural fun and joy of life.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
we can learn from that.
Watermelon lime is saying, well, whole food plant-based is good in my opinion. Of course, it's great. We're both
It is.
champions of veganism and of raw food, and just in our experience, we found even deeper transformation and connection to self and spirit with raw food, and that's why we continue to do it and showcase it. But it's all beautiful.
Well, we're all coming to, if we're on a spiritual path intentionally, we're all working different aspects of it at different times.
Yeah.
So for some people, diets have been more primary for a while. For other people, they're really deep in another part of the practice. Part of the practice. And so, there's no judgment there. It's just we're all working the different pieces at our own pace, which is right for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like to put forth the saying that perfection's in the process, and it's not an end point, it's a continual growth, and where that goes and the lefts and rights, all of it has its place so that we can have that contrast and that experience and, grow with each happening and thing we choose to create in our lives, consciously or unconsciously. So
and honestly, spiritual awakening and what all the gifts of that are is actually more compelling and inspiring to me than perfect physical health. So physical health really helps because you're more joyful in your body, right? And then the spiritual awakening is easier, but it's not like the end goal for me.
No.
It's not the most important part of the process. It's just one of the tools. Like the yogis who created the asanas so there could be more ease in the body so that they could get back to their real pursuit, which was
and meditating. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
To access
Absolutely.
spiritual bliss that we dream of, which is sort of like our true purpose in life. I think maybe, I don't know what, I've thought about this, what's our purpose? And, I might say that it's to come home to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's to realize the essence that we are, that's not any of these material things. And it's not whether our body is perfect or we have, perfect finances or any of that.
Well, I can resonate with that.
Those are nice things that might make life easier, but they're not the true purpose. And so we forget we get so busy running around trying to make all those things perfect in the material realm that we kind of overlook the spiritual journey.
People could be in the perfect body or have lots of money, but be in the prison of their own minds, right? And wouldn't trade that, that's for sure.
Right. So, I mean, for me, the journey just gets richer as I go, because I don't know, I guess I just keep opening up into more potential and possibility and expansion as I see more, right? We have to have the experiences and sometimes the hard ones in order to keep cracking open. It's
often easier in retrospect, but when you have that awareness to be okay with it in the moment, then that's when things soften and the whole ride gets a little bit easier. And
you're just less fearful of with my clients, that's the thing I love to watch happen as they gradually become more courageous about stepping out and taking chances in life, because they're less contracted and they kind of get to know that, if it works out the way they wanted, wonderful, that'll be really fun. If it doesn't, that's wonderful too, because we'll see something and it will enlighten. And so it's all just experience and results, and we just want all of it. If it all worked out easily and perfectly with every step, we wouldn't have enough challenge to, I don't know, the higher we reach, the bigger the challenges probably are going to come our way to help us, not to hurt us, to help us.
As they say, man makes plans and God laughs, right?
Well, and so you must be reaching really high, Chris, with all the accidents you've had. You've been given a lot of heavy duty challenges so that you can get where you're trying to go.
Remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting, but thus is life, and I feel very, very blessed by it, and it's definitely given me, some extra doses of peace and challenge, and but yeah, it is all what is.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Ellen. I really, really appreciate you. I'm so happy that you're back as a part of the bundle, and I just want to send a lot of love to you and your brother and your whole family right now. And
it's everyone.
It is for sure. I absolutely understand that. And I think what you're doing and what you're bringing to the community and sharing in this bundle is going to help a lot of people. And, like we talked about before, people might be applying the diet, but still experiencing things that they feel like they shouldn't be, right? But I think this is going to be a powerful process to help people to let go and to learn how things are multifaceted and to look deeper within and take that journey with you.
And just to know that there's so much support out there, when the student is ready, the teachers appear, and there's so much wisdom in this bundle all together, all of the pieces together make quite a holistic picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's my favorite thing about it. It is raw vegan focused, but there's more than just raw food diet, right? So
right, I love how there's raw mama and there's like yoga in a special way, and just a bunch of other ideas. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
thank you again, Ellen. Only love to you. And it's
Oh,
always
and
fun to connect
we'll
with you here.
be on. Looks like we'll be on tomorrow, where
Yes,
Chris gets to talk about building muscle
of course.
on a raw food diet.
Yeah. What time is that again? I don't have my sheet here, unfortunately.
That is at 12:30 Houston time, so that's 9, 8, 10:30.
10:30 PST. I'll put
Yep.
that up next on my stories as well, and make sure that that has a countdown timer too, so people can join us tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Sound good?
See you then.
Sounds great. Have a great night and much love. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. As always, wishing you much. Peace, love, and seasonal fruit. Be sure to check out the Ultimate Raw Vegan Bundle while it's still available.